Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight's webinar. My name is Adam, Content Marketing Specialist with Henry Schein, and I'll be your moderator. There will be no Q&A for this webinar. If you have questions pertaining to this topic, please email us at webinars@henryschein.com. Please make sure that your volume is up and any large computer applications are closed to ensure a smooth connection. This webinar is presented by Henry Schein Dental Business Institute, and no CE credits are being offered for viewing this presentation. Our speaker today is Tarah Grauer. Tarah is a practice development coach with the Henry Schein Business Solutions team. Thanks for joining us, Tarah. Over to you.
Thank you, Adam, for the introduction. Like Adam mentioned, my name is Tarah Grauer. I am part of Henry Schein's internal coaching program. I've been with the company for a little over 3 years, and it's been such an amazing position to have, and it's been such an amazing company to work with and for. My role as a practice development coach is to assist doctors on a variety of levels. So we do everything from looking at overhead to maximizing coding to transitions and bringing on associates and just making really strategic, informed decisions. And it's been so amazing to be able to partner with the teams and with our doctors and just to have conversations around success. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be able to share some of the things that we've used in the past and some of the things that we're looking at moving forward since our quarantine shut down. Like everyone has said, it was an uncharted time. It was a crazy, unfortunate event. But through every event, we grow and become better, and we learn. So today I will go over just a few metrics, a few different ideas and things that you can take away from this webinar and be able to go back and hopefully implement and continue to finish the year strong. So COVID-19, the year started off amazing. The clients that I was currently working with and still working with, and doctors that I was having higher level conversations with around the success of last year and what was happening moving forward. We were doing fabulous. Our economy was great. It was a really exciting time, and we got halted, right? So there was a big stop, and you can look at it from a variety of ways, right? It's frustrating. It's uncertain. What do we do? How do we move forward? The good news is that we were all in it together. So we were all in a space that we didn't know what to do. So we had to lean on each other and learn from each other. And it really forced us to make a change. We were complacent, we were growing, but we were also overlooking a lot of things. We weren't paying attention to some of the team harmony issues and maybe some of those lower paying insurance contracts. And are we really maximizing our patient flow? What does that experience look like? And even OSHA compliance, right? So we got really comfortable because we were doing so well. So being forced to stop and take a look at, okay, where were we and what did that look like? And then how can we go forward? We don't want to go back. Back isn't the solution. We want to overcome, reinvent, and reestablish. And like we've all learned, dentistry is absolutely essential. And it's back and it's up and running. Like the article in the New York Times mentioned, if you want a screenshot of the economy, look at dentistry. We've always been a glimpse of the success of our economy. So it's a great time to take a moment and say, okay, yeah, we were doing really well and we still can, but how can we do it strategically and how can we make informed decisions moving forward? So with that being said, we have to move towards a more metric-driven mentality. We look at public entities, we look at publicly traded companies, and what they do quarter to quarter and year over year is to drive shareholder value, drive their stakeholder value. And they're doing that in order to keep everybody not just happy, but everybody successful. So when we look at our single locations or our multi-site locations, even though we are private entities, we still have shareholder value. We still have our team members, we have our patients, we have our family, and even yourself to be able to protect and to grow. And when we're successful and we're looking at these metrics quarter to quarter and making those educated decisions and being strategic about our growth and being strategic about what we're doing on a daily basis, we're able to have distributions, right? We're able to create that bonus structure that we always wanted. And it's not just, a random $200. It's no, hey, we did A, B, and C, and we were able to distribute D because we executed the plan. So now everyone's success is revolved around the success of your business, and everybody's happy and everybody has the buy-in. So the key elements to this metric-driven mentality revolved around our last few months, and the shutdown from COVID-19 are going to take a few things into consideration. We really want to measure the impact of COVID-19. What did it do to our business? Where were we? What was the effect that it took on our production and collection? And how can we not only recapture that collection and production, but how can we move forward? And how can we move forward and still finish the year stronger than last year? In order to do that, we have KPIs that will highlight some of that production, so you can actually touch that production and get it back into your schedule. And then metrics to monitor moving forward. There's a ton of metrics that are out there, but there's a few key ones that you can keep an eye on to help you have those strategic quarter-to-quarter meetings, and then reducing our overhead in this new environment. So there's a lot of things that have been, again, in dentistry, and they've been evolving. And with this stop and with this space and time, it's given us an opportunity to not be complacent and to take that leap and to bring optimal patient care and success to your business. So to measure the impact of COVID-19 and what that did to your practice, Henry Schein worked diligently to develop a recovery planner. And with that planner, we were able to take days typically worked, production per hour, per provider, and really analyze, okay, if we were shut down for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, what did that look like? What was the loss? And then how do we regain that? If you haven't already used the recovery planner, I highly recommend going to the Henry Schein website and utilizing that tool. There's no cost. It takes 15 to 20 minutes, and you will get a full breakdown of what that looked like for your practice, and then how you can take some of those nuggets and move forward. It's a great tool. It can work in a variety of different situations. So I highly recommend using that. A snapshot of what the recovery planner will look like is the example I put together in this slide. So if we were shut down for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, we lost $100,000 in production. How can we unpack that into our schedule, and how can we regain that? So if our recovery timeline is 3 months or 60 days, we take that $100,000 and push it into that 60-day time frame. Unpacking it, it would be an extra $1,600 per day or $200 per hour. And when we look at the hour number, it's much more palatable, no pun intended. And it's easier to say, okay, I can do another $200 an hour, especially if that's an overall practice loss and we have 3 providers in the practice. So now I can spread that 200 across the team, which means as the doctor, I need to do an extra $100 an hour. So take my 500 to 600 or 550 to 650. And then my hygienist can take the other 100 and share it between the two of them. So now they're working at 150 an hour, not 125. So when we look at that number, we say, okay, that's doable. We can absolutely do another $25 an hour per hygienist. I can absolutely get another $100 an hour in my schedule. But how do I do that? What does that look like? An example will show up in the planner of procedures. Okay, easy enough. So we had a morning huddle and we discovered that there were 2 patients that needed a large film and they were past due and they've been giving us some pushback. So we decided, you know what, today's the day. We're going to have the conversation. We're going to make sure that we're living up to our standard of care, which we have created in order to keep our patients healthy. So we capture those 2 large films. We do that twice a day for that 60-day time frame. It's $15,000 in revenue, and we move down the line. So all we're doing is going through case acceptance. We're going through treatment plans, unscheduled treatment plans. We're making sure that we're chart prepping for the day, and we're capturing everything that our patients need. We're not doing procedures that they don't need. We're just paying a little more attention. We're doing a little bit more due diligence on the front end and on the back end. We're using our reports and we're having a higher level conversation. And when we do that consistently and we get in a new behavior pattern, at the end of that 60 days, you'll see our output just from procedure implementation is 117,000. So now we've recaptured our loss and we were still producing in addition. So now we're getting back on track. And when we take it in bite-sized pieces, it's much, much easier to understand across the entire team. And it's much easier to make happen, but you can't eat an elephant in one bite. We got to take it piece by piece. So when I'm looking at a practice, I'm looking at the 4 Ps. So we've had the conversation of the loss. We've had a higher level conversation of, just some simple ways that we can grab additional procedures that patients, have left that low hanging fruit that they said they would do, next year, or, I'm not sure if I need that. So we're using our intraoral camera more, all of those conversations. Now we look at the practice from an inside level. So the 4 Ps that I always look at when I have a conversation with a doctor is your active patient count, your new patient flow, your total procedures, and your procedure mix. So how many procedures do you typically do in a year? What kind of procedures are you doing? And then your gross production. So your gross production is going to be the number that most doctors don't typically like to look at. That's your full fee production. So even if we, did a free set of bite wings for mom, or Delta told us that we could only charge $800 for that crown, or something was denied, or we had, professional courtesy, all of those things aside, we still did the work. And that's your gross production. That number is crucial because that is the number that you are at your office, turning the lights on, turning on the suction, paying your team members, all of that is going to overlay into your overhead. So we have to know that number so we know effectively how to be strategic in decreasing your overhead and increasing your collection ratio. These numbers come from our practice analysis. If you haven't had one, I highly recommend it. My background is in clinical. I was a hygienist for a little over 10 years. I was an office manager, started out as a dental assistant. So for me, a lot of these numbers were something that I was never exposed to. So once I had learned about these numbers, once I had, joined the Henry Schein team and become a part of that high level conversation and learned about the practice analysis, it became very, very important for me to share with team members how effective this analysis is. It is easy for anyone to understand. It makes complete sense, and you can start tomorrow with simple adjustments. It's a great tool, and it will also identify just those key features in addition to those 4 Ps: active patient, new patient count, total procedures, and your gross production. So additional KPIs to highlight. So your gross production, your stated production, your net production. So like I was saying, your gross production is going to be your full fee. You were there, you did the service. It's super important to make sure you're always posting everything to your ledger and keeping track of what you're doing, because that will also overlay into your overhead. Your stated production is what you post to the ledger. So if you are in network with Delta, MetLife, Cigna, you're using their fee schedules. You're posting that to your ledger. That is your stated production. Your net production is going to be anything that you adjusted off. So if it was a professional courtesy or a denial or a write-off, bad debt, that's going to come off of your stated, and now you have your net production, and then your net production is going to be lined up against your collection ratio. So your collection ratio should be at least 102%. And the reason it's 102 is that it's rolling, right? So we're posting insurance checks, we're taking deposits, we're up on our statements, and we're doing things correctly on the front end to make sure that we're collecting at least 102% of what we're producing, of our output. Our production per hour per provider is going to come off of your gross production. So if you're looking at your gross or you're looking at your stated, that's what I want you to really see as your production per hour, because that, again, that's what you're doing. That's what you should be doing. And then when we see our net production and we compare those two numbers and we see our collection ratio, that's when we can say, okay, how much do we need to adjust off? How much do we need to change for insurance reimbursements? How much do we need to analyze in order to close that gap? Our insurance utilization, right now more than ever, it's crucial to look at your insurance reimbursement. Your number of active patients are the ones that have been in over the last 24 months. Some software programs are looking at 18 months. But anywhere in that window, that's your active patient count, not the patients that are deactivated in your software. It's somebody who's physically walked through the door, sat in a chair, and had a procedure done at least one time in that 18 to 24 month window. So when you look at your active patient count and you look at your utilization, you're looking at those two together. So how many of my active patients are tied to Delta? How many of my active patients are tied to MetLife? And what is the reimbursement on either of those plans, and what's piggybacking off of who, creating that roadmap so we can make sure that we're maximizing all reimbursement across the board. That insurance utilization tool is crucial in understanding, hey, should I still be working with Solstice, or are those 5 patients not negatively affecting maybe my Cigna patients? So there's a lot going on with that utilization component, and running those reports and understanding who's coming from where, who's working where, what support that's giving your practice is absolutely ideal, especially in today's market. So we're looking at patient flow. We want to know how many patients are coming in. Do I need to see all those patients? Can I see all those patients? How can we be more strategic and increase our production per hour? And how can we do that laid over our insurance plans? Your active patient value is going to be based, again, off of your gross production. So how many patients came in that 18 to 24 month window, and how much production did we actually produce? So is it $600? Is it $1,000? Is it $1,200? A lot of that's going to be based on your procedure mix. So what type of procedures are you doing? What are you comfortable with? What's taking too long? What should we refer out? What should we keep in-house? All of those conversations are going to lay over your active patient value. My goal for practices is to have at least an active patient value of $1,000. When we get to that $1,200, $1,500 is when we're really being strategic and we're doing everything we need to be doing in every hour that we're at work. Your patient retention, also crucial. How many patients are walking through the door? How many new patients are you getting a month? And how many are staying? So how many are saying yes to your standard of care, and how many are scheduling in the hygiene department? The hygiene department will feed your production. 75 to 80% of your production is going to come from hygiene. New patients are absolutely important. We have to have a steady, solid new patient flow, but without the retention from the hygiene department is where we start spinning our wheels. That's when our active patient value decreases. That's when our output in attracting new patients increase, and it becomes very, very expensive. It also becomes very, very exhausting. New patients should have a special block in the schedule. You should only see so many a day based on the amount that you're seeing a month. And they need to be blocked out to where the doctor or hygienist can spend just enough time with them. It's your first date. It's your time to shine. You obviously still want to look good on the second and third date, but the first impression is everything. So you want to make sure that they're not crammed in between a root canal and a quadrant scale, and Sally up front is running around answering phones, and that new patient is like, what's going on? Where's my attention? So you want to make sure that you're being very specific on when you're seeing new patients and how many you're seeing every day. A lot of that will roll into your case acceptance percentage. Most offices don't know this number. Your active patient count, number one KPI to know. Case acceptance, pretty much equal. I would say number two, or it's a 1-to-1. So case acceptance is everything. It's not just, did I sit in your chair and say yes to the filling or the crown? It's, was the bathroom clean? Was I recognized when I walked up to the front desk, was I taken back on time? All of those things roll into case acceptance. It's how I was treated in your practice. That's when I say yes. 85% of patients will buy based on how they feel. The other 15% buy based on skill. So 85% of your patients are saying yes because of the way they feel when they're in your office. They understand their treatment, they feel safe, they feel recognized, they feel important, and that's when you get the yes. Preventative perio percentage, again, another big number to know. Perio is more important than ever right now. We're looking at an immunocompromised demographic of patients. We need to make sure that they're as healthy as we can contribute. And perio is, again, a huge part of that, like we all know. So if we're treating perio, we're getting our patients healthy, we're maintaining disease, then we're helping the rest of their systemic conditions, and we're keeping them in a healthier state. So doing perio charting, making sure that we're growing that percentage. If it's 2% of our patient base, we're at least getting it to that 3 or 5. The goal would be to have at least 30% of your hygiene patient base be coded into perio. So when I say coded into perio, we want them to be in a 4910. We want them to have had therapeutic services and understood what their disease was, and they've moved into maintenance phase. The preventative percentage is also very important when you're looking at your procedure mix. So your overall hygiene department should comprise 25 to 30% of your production. And if it's lower than that, then you want to see, okay, are we doing services that are just completely blowing hygiene out of the water, or are we not focused on our retention? So if your preventative department plus perio is lower than 20, say we're at like 17, 18%, what does that look like? Are we seeing so many new patients that we can't get them into hygiene? Are the hygiene patients not staying? Do we not have enough operatories? Do we not have enough hygiene days? Do we need another hygienist? Do we need to let go of a hygienist? So what's going on where we can get that 18 to 25? So you want to make sure that you're looking at the overall practice, but you're also looking at each provider and what each section of your practice is bringing in. Your clinical intensity will be based off of your production and also your patient flow. So we line up clinical intensity along hygiene. So how many patients sat in hygiene, how many patients had treatment diagnosed, and how many of those patients said yes and got into the doctor's chair. An example would be 100 hygiene patients sit in the hygiene chair. Of those 100, 20 should have a single unit restoration. Did those 20 say yes? And what does that number look like? Did only 17 say yes? Did we miss 3? Why did we miss those 3? So what happened in that time frame? Patient absolutely just didn't get it and said no. That happens. Was the intraoral camera not working that day? Was I having a bad day and I just didn't continue the conversation? Did they leave without a treatment plan? All of those numbers and all of those situations have to be addressed in those quarterly meetings so that we can minimize those problems and we can stick to our clinical intensity level. So now that we're looking at those KPIs, we know what to track. Our target matrix right now is to look at increasing our active patient value. So what is your active patient value? You know how to find it. We know our active patients. We have our gross production. What does that value look like? We want that number to increase. We also want to reduce patient chair time, and we want to reduce their appointments. So we want to make sure that they're getting their treatment done, and then they're able to come back at their next preventative appointment. We want to reduce the exposure. We want to keep our patients safe, and all of those things are in our benefit. It's all the things that we've wanted to do. It's all the things that we said, wouldn't that be so great if we could practice that way? Well, now we can. We've been pushed into this space, and it's our opportunity to capitalize on it. So your increased active patient value, we really need to look at our fees and our reimbursement. And I know I keep going back to insurance reimbursement, but if I look at a practice analysis and I sit down with a doctor and I see that they have 2,500 active patients and it's a one doctor practice and they have 2 hygienists, they're maxed out with patients. So one doctor can typically see comfortably about 1,500 to 1,600 active patients. And when we get past that number, it starts getting a little chaotic. So where are those patients coming from? Yes, great, we have them. Do they love us and they never want to leave? Do we need to bring in another provider? Do we need an associate? Do we need to add a hygiene day? How can we keep them in-house? Or do we look at it as it's an open door policy and they're just coming in for an emergency and then they're not going to hygiene? And where are those patients coming from and what are they attached to? So if we have 2,500 active patients and our active patient value is $600, to me, I'm going to say, okay, let's run that utilization report. Let's look at where these patients are coming from. Let's look at the patients that are saying yes. So do our 80-20 rule, find the 80% that love us, and then let's stop running around like crazy. Let's get a healthy active patient value, and then let's increase that value by decreasing the lower paying reimbursement. Let's pay attention to our adjustments. Let's pay attention to how much we give away, and let's increase our active patient value. So we're doing all of that through our procedure mix, our case acceptance. We're making a strategic plan, but it is possible. You just have to know the numbers. You have to be able to run those reports out of your software and understand how to utilize them and unpack it moving forward. Reduction in patient appointments. So quadrant dentistry. Yay! We can finally get our patients to agree to why quadrant dentistry is so important. Intraoral camera, every operatory, every room, every visit. All the practices that I work with, they know that when Tara's here, that's the first thing that's going to come out of her mouth. Where's the intraoral camera? Did you take the picture? Did it get sent home with the patient? Did they see it again? Was it up in the operatory when you were having the conversation? X-rays are absolutely diagnostic and absolutely needed. The majority of your patient base thinks that that little hole and that little tooth is little. When we have a picture and it's up on the big screen, that little hole is in real life. You can see it, it's big. And I would ask my patients, what do you think? What do you think it looks like? Do you think it needs to be fixed? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes. Perfect. Now we're on the same page. Now we're having an educated conversation around getting you healthy. Let's see what we can do. If we are having those conversations, we're using those pictures, and we're getting our patients on board, we can move towards quadrant type dentistry. So now we're reducing the patient appointments. We went from 10 appointments to 4. We're increasing our case acceptance. So in $1 million practice, which is a very general practice, we increase our case acceptance from 40% to 50%, which is awesome. A 10% jump is great. If we can get to 80, gold medal. But even the 10%, I absolutely love, because in that $1 million practice, that's an additional $100,000 in revenue by the end of the year. I don't know about you, but I would take $100,000. So if we're increasing our case acceptance from 40 to 50, we're using our intraoral camera. The ROI on the intraoral camera paid off months ago. Now we have our financial arrangements in place. We're getting paid quicker. We're not waiting 10 months for those 10 appointments to have the patient get their work done. So now the money's in the bank, the treatment's done, our patients are healthy, and we're working smarter, not harder. In order to do some of these things, now we can take that leap and reduce our chair time. So how do we reduce our chair time? Same day dentistry, less anesthesia. The Solea laser has been an amazing tool in offices to decrease chair time and increase patient case acceptance. The patients love this machine. They love having, say, a crown done in a day. They also love not having a shot. So if we can do any type of procedure without getting a patient numb, especially kids, this laser is night and day. Another added benefit, decreased aerosols. So it's a marketing tool. There's so many things that you can do with this equipment and technology, and it pays off tenfold. If you can add 2 more 2-surface resins per week into your schedule at $200 per resin, that's an additional $20,000 by the end of the year. So your profit margin is going to exceed the expense of the Solea laser. Same thing with same-day dentistry. Same thing with CAD/CAM. If we can incorporate same-day dentistry into our patient flow and increase our crown acceptance from 20 to 40%, so adding an additional 6 crowns to our current 30 crowns a month, that would be an additional 72 a year at $800 a crown. we're looking at $57,000 in reimbursement. So what does that look like exactly? So if you're doing 2 crowns, 13 and 14, our traditional restorative treatment would be about 150 minutes. So we're doing a 90-minute crown prep, and then we bring them back for the crown seat. So what we're able to do is actually reduce the tear time. We're able to also reduce patient appointments. So we went from 150 minutes to 135 minutes. We went from a 90-minute prep to a 45-minute design and seat. Our lab costs are zero. Our material cost has decreased. Our overall staff cost has decreased by 67% because now we're getting the treatment done today, getting paid today, and we're moving on to a different procedure within 2 weeks. So our average PPO fee stays the same, but if you look at our hourly production, we moved from that $688 to $765. So we increased our production by 11%. So we have 16% increase in profit. If 20% of our production is coming from single unit restorations, then that means about $240,000 of our production in $1 million practice is coming from crowns. If we can increase that by 16%, then that's an additional $38,000 in revenue at the end of the year. We back out our payment for having the equipment in our office, $1,500, $2,000 a month. We're still at a $20,000 profit by doing the same amount of crowns. And we've already talked about the ability to add in an additional 6 crowns a month, which was the $57,000 in revenue. So now we're at $77,000 in profit just by incorporating the same day dentistry. So now we've increased our patient value. We've increased case acceptance. We've increased our internal marketing because our patients are ecstatic about same day treatment and the reduced appointments. So now we're at a $77,000 profit margin. And we pushed ourselves into the 20th century, and our patient acceptance and our patient value is where we've targeted for our shareholder value. So with that being said, let's talk about our overhead reduction. We've already figured out that we can increase our production. So our fixed variables have changed a little bit. We've purchased some equipment. We have payments that we're now doing, but our variable expenses have changed. So our lab costs have gone down. Our team member salaries have changed. So there's some things that are fluctuating. But if we take that $1 million practice and we say, okay, we have 6% in supplies or 6% in lab bills, whatever you want to overlay, 6% of our production is going out. That's $60,000. If we were able to save 10% in supplies, so say we are able to decrease that and we're able to spend less, awesome, it's $500 a month. If we're able to do the same thing with a lab, can we decrease our lab bill? Possibly. But we've already decided that that's not worth it. It's much more effective to do same day dentistry. That's going to increase our profit margins. So say we still decrease it by 10%, we save that $500 a month, absolutely beneficial. It's not something that we want to overlook. But if we look at increasing our production by $100,000, so we increase our case acceptance by 10%, look at the difference. That's $8,300 a month in revenue that's coming in. You've heard the term before, you can't save your way to prosperity. It's absolutely true. The only way to decrease your overhead is to increase your collections. One of my practices that I work with, they looked at reducing their hours when coming back from COVID. Perfect. They were typically working a 40-hour work week. They decided, hey, we're going to decrease some of those hours. We're going to spread some things out and we're going to work smarter, not harder. So they decreased their hours to about 32. He was producing about $500 an hour. So we looked at their active patient count. We looked at their reimbursement. We looked at their procedure mix. And we said, okay, if we're able to get that 500 to 650 and you're working less, you're not in the office, we can collect the same, which is about $20,000 a week. And we can decrease your variable expenses, decrease your overhead, and your collection stays the same. So you're still collecting the $20,000, but you've reduced your overhead, and now your profit at the end of the year is more than it was last year, and you've worked less days. It's absolutely doable if that's your goal. That was his goal. If you want to work more, great. We can open up on Saturday. We can be available, but how can we do it strategically? And how can we still decrease our overhead by being more aware of what we're doing in that hour? Like we discussed, you have to know your overhead percentage to start with. Is it at 70%? Is it 85%? Is it at somewhere in the middle? Either way, we need to look at our fixed and variable cost inside of that percentage. What is our rent? What does our lease look like? What are we paying our team? What can we bundle? What can we look at to be more strategic? And how can we take that gross production, overlay it on our collection number, and see the difference? So if we did $1 million in gross production, but we only collected 600,000, what does that 1 million look like in place of the 600? Because that's actually what you did. FP&L, or your water company, didn't care that you decided to work with Delta. They're charging you the same as the guy next door who decided not to take Delta. So those are your fix that we have to look at and say, okay, we can't get away from this. These are our expenses. They're here to stay. But how can we bridge the gap from that 600,000 in collection to the 1 million in production that we actually did? And how can we get more of that 1 million into our bank account? Collection policy. What's our collection policy? How are we presenting fees? How are we following up? How are we making sure patients are paying at time of service? What are we doing on the front end from an insurance standpoint, making sure that patients are eligible, that the breakdowns are correct, that we're giving them honest, fair copays, and making sure that they're paying those copays before they leave. All of those financial arrangements that are done during that visit are what's going to increase your case acceptance percentage. Regardless, that's the number one number to know. Are our patients saying yes? Are we seeing 50 new patients a month and 10% of those 50 new patients are saying yes to treatment? How much are we spending to get those 50 new patients, and why are only 10% saying yes? If you don't know the percentage, you don't know how to make decisions. You don't know if the camera didn't work for 2 weeks. You don't know if we're not scheduling them strategically. We're seeing way too many new patients in one day, and it's a whirlwind of an experience. So you have to know what's going on, what you're spending, where they're coming from, so that you can start being more effective in your overhead and increasing your shareholder value. Be intentional about the procedures in your schedule. I can't stress this enough. If you don't like doing root canals and they take you too long, don't do them. If you want to do implants and you're great at them and you have the CT and you're good to go, let's do it. But you have to find what you're passionate about, find what you're good at, and capitalize on that. Find your top 25 procedures, find what you like and what's bringing in the majority of your bread and butter into your practice, and be intentional about pushing them back down into your schedule. How many do you need to see a day? What is your perfect day look like? And how can we stay as close to that perfect day as possible? Focusing on your higher production per visit, crucial. Performing more same-day dentistry, again, like we talked about. The equipment is a no-brainer. When you look at it financially, it all makes sense. And again, it trickles down into your marketing. You're going to see an increase in internal referrals. You're going to see an increase in acceptance. All of these things are where dentistry is headed. Like I said in the first slide, dentistry is back and we're better than ever. And all of these tools and all of these things that we've had are now at our fingertips to implement and get rolling with. And obviously inventory management, making sure that you have someone that's responsible for it. You guys are practicing dentistry, and that's what I want you to be doing. You're making sure that we're not micromanaging and that we're able to hold our team accountable and appoint people to certain tasks. So when you have those quarterly meetings, you can check in with those people and have conversations around, hey, this is where we were, this is where we wanted to be, or this is what needed to change. What did it look like, and how did it affect us moving forward? So making sure that we have inventory management, absolutely important, but you want to make sure that you have really clear job descriptions and outlines and ways to measure your team so that they're contributing to the overall success of your practice. One of my favorite slides right now really drives home where we've been and where we're going. Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself. So everything that we've gone through, everything that we've experienced this last quarter has really given us an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to push forward and we're going to be better and stronger and smarter. Or we're going to go back to same old, or we don't come back at all. So everything that we've gone through is revealing our opportunity to ourselves to make a decision on how we want to move forward. When we have the numbers, when we have the support, when you have Henry Schein on your team, we're here. We make sense of it. We help you step by step, get you guys to a place where you're having, again, those meetings and you're excited about dentistry, excited about the opportunity, excited to come to work, and excited to have a team that supports that. So I want to thank you for sharing your time with me today. I hope that I was able to give you some good nuggets. If you have any questions or if there's anything that I can do to help, I would highly suggest grabbing a practice analysis from your sales consultant. I'm happy to jump on a call and help walk through some of those numbers and look at where you are currently and how we can potentially work together moving forward, or even just give you, like I said, just some key pieces to say, hey, work on this for a couple months and let me know how it goes. So this is my number and my email. Please feel free to reach out, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you, Tarah, for the great presentation, and thank you, everyone, for attending the webinar. If you have questions following the webinar, please feel free to email Tarah directly or email us at webinars@henryschein.com. Everyone attending will receive a link to view the recording of today's presentation in the coming week via email. On behalf of Henry Schein Dental Business Institute, thank you for attending. Have a great night.